Can you live in one of the hottest real estate markets in the United States and still do seller financing? Stand by. Welcome to this week's edition of Note School TV, where every Wednesday at 11:05 Central Time, we bring you the best content that we possibly can. So this week is no exception. And yes, our guest today, well, he lives in one of the hottest markets in the United States, and you'll get to meet him in just a minute. But before we do, let's do a couple of things. Number one, like our content, right? Let us know that we're doing a great job, and just keep us right on the top of the list there. Subscribe to the Note School TV channel. And number three, hit that bell notification. Yes, go ahead, boom, hit that bell notification so you will be warned when we go live. When? Every Wednesday at 11:05 Central. And also, if you would like more information on what we do at Note School, just have a question, want to know what we do, all of those things. And by the way, keep sending in your comments and questions. We love to get those. Gives us some great feedback. But just go to noteschool.com/TV. Again, noteschool.com/TV. So again, thanks for being with us this week. And now, well, we are ready for the news. So, hot off the press here, guys. You see what we have here? Fed searches for the magic number to cool a red hot U.S. housing market. So the Federal Open Market Committee will meet again in June 14th and 15th. And, they'll meet again in July as well. Actually, they'll meet 4 more times this year. And, Chairman Powell says we have the tools and the resolve to fix this. Good news is rates this week are just a tad over 5% at 5.10. So they've kind of ticked up and ticked down a little bit. But so that's a good thing. But still, economists from Goldman Sachs and Bank of America say, well, prices are still going to grow like crazy this year. Reading here, Goldman Sachs says 10% this year. Bank of America forecasts 15% this year. And so, here's the thing. Christopher Thornburg at Beacon Economics in Los Angeles said this is not a market that 5% interest rates is going to scare at all. So people are still buying, still going after it. And, the Fed's going to try to do what they can do about that. But again, the median price this week, according to the National Association of Realtors, is, it's 14.8% over what it was last year at this time, up to $391,200. So we'll see what the Federal Open Market Committee will do with rates here in the next couple of weeks. But I would say that it's a pretty safe bet that we'll see another half point, and we'll just see where it goes. So guys, that is the news for this week. And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our Chief Visionary Officer, our founder and all-around great guy, Mr. Eddie Speed.
Well, thank you, Joe. And this week we have a great session because we are going to learn some great information from a really seasoned real estate investor and a guy that I think has a vision on the market and where it's going. And he has quite a perspective, because when you find out where he's from, you're going to see that he knows what a boom real estate market has looked like. You guys welcome Dan Walters, Boise, Idaho.
Hey, Eddie, how's it going?
What does a hot market look like, Dan?
Well, can tell you that inventory is low. Everybody thinks that there's nothing out there to buy, and you gotta, just like all the memes on all the social media posts say, that you have to give 50 to 100,000 over asking, and you have to sign your firstborn over and all those things to be able to get anything that's worthwhile. So it's nuts, man. It is crazy.
It is nuts. I was reading I did a little reading on Boise before we started today, because I didn't want to. It's such a crazy market, top market in the country. Now I'll tell you something. Moody's says it's 73% overvalued. That's a little scary.
Right. Well, and I guess if you talk to a lot of the locals that have lived here for all the time, they'll probably tend to agree with that. But yeah. I guess if they're coming in from out of state, they seem to be, thinking that's a hell of a deal for what they can get. But it's all about perspective.
So just a little background. Dan and I got to be friends. Dan is involved in a real estate mastermind that I have participated in many times. And we got to know each other. Dan eventually came down to a class, a 3-day class, and hung out with us. And really what happens is you look at a real estate investor, you don't just do the same thing over time. And you started way back in 2009, right, Dan?
Yep. Yeah. I went, actually bought my first property back in like 2004, 2005, as I was kind of trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life, but went full-time in 2009 and haven't looked back ever since. So yeah, we initially started off really just doing the fix and flip in a crashing market. So we were in 2009 and as things were sliding. So it was it was a great lesson that we learned with my partner at the time. And then, we transitioned into more of a buy and hold strategy and focused on that. And then as the years have gone, as the market has cycled, we've added more tools to our belt. So we kind of do a little bit of everything now, from buy and hold, fix and flip, wholesaling. Now, obviously, we're doing the notes and the owner financing side of things.
So, Dan, a lot of our audience they haven't done it as long as you've done it, and they haven't done it as extensively as you've done it. Yeah, these guys hear me refer to the ninja real estate investor, and I don't know, Dan, that you're not necessarily the 200 house a year guy, but the deals you've done have been like really solid deals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And we really tend to focus on quality over quantity. I think part of that's to maintain some of the sanity in this business. So yeah, we've really been more of a quality based, but it's done really well for us. And yeah, we've really enjoyed the time.
Well, and one thing that we've learned, in coaching people from the guy that's a small operator, right? We coach more people that do 5 to 20 deals a year than we do that we coach to do 200 plus deals a year, but we've had a lot of experience with both, right? There's just more people that do the smaller amount than the bigger amount. But the one thing that I think is really interesting, and you and I happened to be with each other last week, and just really this beating it up, and that you've got a killer resume. You've done crazy good deals. Your average profit per deal is, let's call it, amazing.
Be fair.
But you're now making some personal decisions about the business, and you're transitioning. So you've been in Boise, Idaho, crazy wild market, but now all of a sudden, the affordability factor it's the obvious. The affordability factor it was going to be a thing, and it has become a thing. And the market is changing, and how people are reacting are changing. Let's talk about that. What transitions are you seeing in the market?
Well, we're starting to see, we're obviously starting to see, I think we're a little insulated from probably most areas of the, of the nation, just because of what we're seeing as far as an influx of people moving to this market. So we're going to be a little bit insulated. However, we're starting to see things slow down a little bit as our inventory levels are starting to creep up. But also these interest rates are going to have an enormous effect on our affordability, especially when you're talking about a median price point. I think we're I think we're right now in the mid five. I think we're like in the 550, 560 range. Which, in the last 2 years, that was jumping. I think we jumped between 25 to 30% year over year in appreciation. So I started I bought my first property back in 2005, and then my mentality being the first time in a market, a first time investor, very, very, very green, thinking that, oh man, this is crazy. This could never end. And these were a lot of the conversations that people were having at that point in time. And I remember kind of drinking the Kool-Aid in that aspect of it. And obviously we know what happened about 2 or 3 years later, and then the fallout from that. So fast forward, 10, 12, 13 years later, 15 years later, seeing all the opportunity and the rise and the fall, and then the increased appreciation again. Now watching kind of this, now where it's the question of where are we in this uprising? I mean, we're kind of at that crescendo here, and that's what we're anticipating, because we're starting to see again the rates are indicative of what that's going to do to price. And then obviously with demand, we know that there's still demand there, but again, we don't want to be trying to time that market, because if we had all had the crystal ball, we probably wouldn't be sitting here having these conversations. We'd be somewhere else drinking our favorite our favorite cocktail on our own private island. But yeah, so for us, we're really looking at transitioning more into, for me personally, I'm looking at getting into something that's a little bit more passive, but at the same time, being in the house flipping business and even being in the rental business as well, it's time intensive, it's management intensive. And as I'm getting to this point in my life and just looking at the scalability of what I want to build for not only my business, but for my family and then for the people that work with me, is creating something that's not so intensive and not so management heavy. The conversation that we had, we were talking about last week, is just, man, you do this long enough, especially in the fix and flip side and the rental side, man, you do get beat up. I mean, it's a lot of emotional energy, and there's a lot of mental energy that goes into it. And for me, I don't want to feel that weight. I want to look into something that has, something that can, number one, build a legacy from a true wealth building standpoint. And more importantly, build something that kind of gives me more freedom of my time, and where I can engage more with friends, family, and chase things that are more passionate, that I have more passion about, other than just doing real estate, full time all the time.
Well, wholesaling, flipping a contract, or even buying a house, closing on it, flipping it, is transactional, right? It's a job, right? And you're good at it, but I related it to the group you were in last week, and we said it's a little bit like working literally on the trading floor in Wall Street. You don't see people that's done it a lot more than 7 or 8 years, right? And if you're brand new, that's probably not believable to you, because you've heard people tell you how great it is. I'm just saying, there's a guy right there that you see on this screen, and he'll tell you that I can put 200 more guys like up there on the screen that'll all tell you it's a grind that you wake up and want to get out of.
Yeah. I mean, it is a hustle, and it's even become more so over the last, 24 to 36 months, as as the increase, as more people are looking to step in, especially with what's gone on in the last 2 years with the pandemic. People, there's a lot of people that have put their careers and in consideration, and been able to chase after some things that maybe they were doing as a hobby or had put it on the side, is like, maybe someday I'll get to it. Well, the last 2 years have afforded people the time to be able to go start chasing after it. And we've seen a lot of investors step into this, and wholesaling is obviously what is marketed and sold as a great entry point to it. And so everybody and their dog's doing it, and you come to a market like this because it's a great market to invest in. Man, it's flooded with a lot of people overpaying, and it is a hustle. It is a grind. You get into these conversations, and you're one of 20, or you're one of 25 or 30 or 40 people that they've already talked to or received mailers from, and you're just another number. So I think what kind of what the big appeal to me in stepping into note school is, we're creating more valued connections, more valued transactions that are beneficial not only to your seller, but also to the bottom line from a wealth building standpoint, that also gets you paid now too. So and that's really what kind of our core business is here. It's about quality, about sustaining and building relationships, about not being just the transactional guy that is, the transactional company that just takes your money and off you go and you never hear from us again. We want to be, somebody that you can come back to if and when, we want to create repeatable business if possible. Yeah. So that's all within the relationships. And this is kind of what part of that seller financing, creating the terms, everything else has allowed us to continue to build on and do.
So these guys hear me talk a lot about the landlord is the most likely customer that real estate investors chase, right? Why is that true, Dan?
Well, I can tell you from experience, if you don't have a system in place, and you don't know how to manage, you don't know how to screen, you don't know how to maintain properties, it can just be nothing but one giant money pit. It can be one giant emotional suck of energy, and it can just burn you out. I mean, there's been numerous individuals that we've talked to have purchased properties from that they got into it as their retirement. They got into it as their wealth building strategy, and their experience has been nothing but horrendous. They've had the tenants changing the oil of their motorcycle in their living room to, having 20 to 15 to 20 people living in the house at a time, not maintaining it. There's felons in there, and then there's squatters in there, and then but there's just thousands and thousands of dollars being poured into this thing that has done nothing but suck their time away, and it's just burned them out completely from this dream of what they were sold on, is having positive cash flow, having this portfolio property that can sustain their retirement so they can get out of the rat race of the 9 to 5. And they just get burned out on that dream because they didn't know how to manage it and run it, because they just got into it as a hobby.
So what you just heard was what any of the top 500 house buyers in the business would all tell you. All 500 of them would say exactly the same thing. Statistically, rental properties ownership is dominated by small-time individual landlords. They own 5 houses or less, right? They 3/4 of them self-manage. And so they are trying to manage what they thought was an investment. And they found out they bought a job, right? And that's why you guys chase the landlords. But you guys have a unique situation. Every landlord that has owned a house 5 years is in the same way. Boise's just bigger. Now these guys, if they sell to you, they got a tax problem. Maybe they don't. Right, Dan?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Especially when, we look at the appreciation that we've had here in the last couple of years, but now you're sitting here talking to landlords that have owned these properties for 10, 15, 20 plus years, and they have this insurmountable amount of equity in their properties where, at one point they paid maybe $150,000 to $175,000 for these properties, and now they're worth, north of $500,000 on an investment deal. I mean, and we're talking, and this isn't even, a multifamily deal. These are just single family residential properties, where they're looking at now having to come out with a gain of, north of 450,000. And that's a substantial amount.
So we were talking about this last week, Dan. For a moment, I'm going to propose that you're a landlord, right? One of these guys with a low basis and a high value. And there's really 2 ways I can make you an offer, Dan. I can make you a cash offer, or I can make you a tax strategy offer.
Well, tell me. Well, I'm interested in hearing what the cash offer would be, but I'm really intrigued by this tax strategy offer. Tell me more.
Well, I'm a real estate investor, so if I make you a cash offer, just know that it probably is not exactly what you're wanting, but probably because your house is going to need some repairs, or even as light as they are, it's not going to be perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you just know that I'm buying a headache that the consumer that's going to list it through a realtor is probably not going to deal with, right? But here's a more important thing. There is a loophole in the IRS tax code. It's been around for decades. It's not a secret. It's just a secret to most people. You know, they say, Dan, that the richest people pay the least taxes. It's not because they're breaking the law, right? That's a misnomer. They're not breaking the law. They just know advantages that other people don't know. And this strategy is an example that you could sort of operate. Your property has been good to you. Managing your rentals has not, right? And so at this point in the conversation, Dan, I haven't even mentioned seller financing, have I?
Nope.
I haven't said take terms. I'm going to focus you first on the most important thing, which is what's really bothering you. You and I know what we believe are the best of the best of the best negotiators in buying houses in the United States. Between a circle of people that we've run around, they're considered to be the best. And they tell us the number one reason a landlord won't sell is because he's worried about taxes. Do you think that's a true statement?
I believe that, yeah, I believe in the conversations that we are having lately, that is becoming, number one is the pain of dealing with the property itself, but the underlying current of how they're going to sell, it may not be a prize to them yet, but once we start having that conversation, that it comes to the surface that yes, that is one of the most important when they do sell. Absolutely.
Here's what I like about it, Dan. It's a conversation that puts you in a completely different platform than all of your competition. You said they've already talked to 40 people, right? Well, the 40 people all have the same pitch. And you're now showing them a strategy that nobody else is showing them, and it's good for them. It really is a tax loophole, and it is an opportunity, right?
Yep.
Installment sales. It's not magic, but it's kind of magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this. We're going to hear a word from our sponsor, Note School, and its one-day class. Dan, we're going to talk about go forward, what your go forward plan looks like when we come back.
Well, hello, everyone. It is Brian with the teaching team here at Note School, and I'm excited that I get to be the one to invite you to the upcoming Gold in Notes class. That's right. It is a one-day deeper dive class that we call Gold in Notes because of how valuable this time spent is. This is a full day that we really get to dig into the nitty-gritty, the whole world of creative financing, not just how to acquire more deals, how to get access to more capital, how to defer a lot of the taxes for us as well as for the sellers that we're talking to, and really learn how to create your own notes. And really, once you learn how to create your own notes, this is really where we spend an entire afternoon really pulling back the curtain on what the note business is, from wholesaling notes, buying and holding performing notes to really build your wealth. I'll even show you a strategy called partials, which is by far the best wealth building tool I've ever seen in the real estate space. And we're definitely going to spend some time talking about non-performing notes, which is by far the biggest opportunity in today's marketplace, solely because of the events that have happened over the past couple of years. This is when people are not paying their mortgages, and we're going to make a lot of big money from these bad debts, and we're going to help a lot of people get a second chance. It's an absolutely fantastic day. Come spend a day really dig in and discover a lot of this stuff so that you too can start building your wealth. It's a day meant to really be engaging. Bring your questions, bring your comments, bring your business problems, and we will see you there.
So, by the way, that one-day class, you saw those pictures there. It is now virtually, it's virtual almost all the time. And so we are able to put a lot more people into it. And it's just a time, guys, that we can do what Dan and I were talking about today. We just can beat it up, show specific examples and case studies, and play that card game out a little bit of what that negotiation trail looks like. And one of the things that we do talk about in the one-day class is something that you have become very intrigued with, Dan, which is non-performing notes.
That we have, yes.
And sort of a different side of the business. So Dan, I would say that your real estate investing business is now very mature, and you're now moving to some decisions that you are making, and you are definitely offering the tax strategy scenario to close more deals. You're trying to close deals that otherwise nobody else is closing, right?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. It does. It does two things here. When we approach it this way, number one, it allows us from a bunch of our outgoing marketing or inbound marketing we have in our marketing channels. It's allowing us to pick up more deals that we would normally, that wouldn't normally fit in the box of a fix and flip or a wholesale strategy, which I know you've talked about extensively over the last couple of years in this. So that's what it's allowed us to do is pick up more through our conversions. But the second piece of this too is just what you're alluding to in this tax strategy form. In the amount of investor or investment companies that these people are talking to, this lends so much more credibility to our business in what we can do in providing solutions for people, because this is the biggest thing inside of this business. We want to be solutions oriented. And if we can come in and allow them to have 1, 2, or 3 solutions, which we're actually starting to move away from these multiple options, because we found it's just getting too confusing and it inundates them. So we're just saying like, hey, look, we're having the conversation up front. Like, what's important to you? What are you looking to solve here? And allow us to kind of go through multiple conversations and layer this thing to where we step in and say, okay, hey, this looks like this might be the best fit for you. So here's what we can do and what we can offer in providing the solution for you. So
here's what I think, Dan. You can always move somebody back to a cash deal. I would say, would you rather pay taxes now or pay taxes later? And in some cases, and you're doing a giant disclaimer, but in some cases, because you're giving them only so much capital gains within a year, that capital gains isn't taxed in some scenarios. So it's not like literally you could wipe out tax gain. Like, come on, really? Could you? I mean, is that possible? And the answer is, it actually is possible. One of the things that I want you guys to know is Dan has been a coach. So he's worked with some of these high volume masterminds, and he's coached some people that are trying to get a grip and trying to get started. And Dan, I think a lot of times people have a fear that this is too sophisticated, right? I can't do this. So I want you to kind of talk about that. Let's just pretend you're coaching a guy that does 6 deals a year. How does he add this?
Well, look, here's what that's such a great question, because I think we as in our natural state, we tend to, our minds want to make things more complicated than they really are. And more importantly, what we try to internalize ourselves, we think that we have to communicate every single piece of the transaction and how it's going to work to the person, like to the seller in this instance, that we have to communicate every single piece in how this transaction is going to work, how it's going to break down. And we have to know step by step by step by step by step. And the reality is, like, that couldn't be further from the truth. At the end of the day, what we know is that they're selling for a reason. And this is the most important thing I try to communicate to all the people that I work with, is like, look, and even with my acquisition team, it's like, look, they are reaching out because they have a problem. All we have to do is solve that problem, and that is selling the property. You talk about it a lot when we sell on terms. Like, if they can get their price, they're going to go tell their sister, they're going to go tell their family members that they sold it for X amount of dollars. And what they don't realize, and all the underlying terms and things that come along with it, they don't care. They just want to know that it's sold and it's gone.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that is the most important piece. Now, all the behind the scenes stuff, we can certainly, create, and that's why we have a power team. That's why we have a CPA. That's why we have people. That's why we invest in masterminds like this, to have people that have the 30 or 40 or 50 years of experience, or all this combined experience that we can reach out to and say, okay, hey, here's my scenario. What is everybody using that can kind of simplify this so we can make this work the way that this seller wants it to have happen? And that's where, it's like, don't get caught up in all the back stuff, in all the stuff behind the scenes, because that's something that you can rely upon. The most important thing up front is like, look, here's your problem. we can take care of that, and let's talk about the process in doing that. And we'll have a member of our team, or our team will get in touch with you and how we can make this happen for you. So it's very simple, as long as if you focus on the emotional piece of this and taking away the pain, and more importantly, providing them a viable solution that gives them the benefits, especially from a tax standpoint, that they want, because nobody likes paying more taxes. I mean, I've yet to meet one that says I'll pay more.
And what's funny about in real estate, and I was having a conversation with a guy that I partner with in the land business this morning. We were talking about the tax strategy. Listen, their accountant's not calling them and telling them about this. You think they would, but they're not, right? And I mean, and they're nobody's telling them that there's even a tax strategy that they could consider. Right. So you're bringing up an idea to them. And I use an analogy because people are so worried. I have to know every possible thing about the tax law. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I have a decent working knowledge, but I certainly, first of all, I'm not, giant disclaimer, I'm not a CPA. I can't give tax advice, right? But that doesn't mean I can't point you to something that with your investigation that you wouldn't have not even known to investigate it. Think in terms of if I were selling, I was a car salesman. A guy comes in and he's a painting contractor. Could I say to him, you could do a lease on this and deduct 100% of your payment on your lease because you're using this truck for your work? Is that a true statement? Is that probably true?
Mm-hmm.
It is probably true. Do I need to know everything about the tax law to say that could be an advantage in you considering how you finance your truck? Right? So think in terms of this. You don't have to know everything about the tax law to say that if you've owned this property for a long period of time and you have a big gain on the property, that you can lay that gain down and take your payments over time and pay your taxes over time. That does not make me a tax expert to say that, but I am pointing something out to them that nobody else buying from them is pointing out. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, in the very first terms deal that I did, it was actually probably within 30 to 60 days after I came out of our first 3-day event, ended up putting a deal together. I didn't know the mechanics of it, but what I did know is inside of that conversation that was something that we could present the possibility of, hey, this could be a large benefit to you because of the implication of your ability to pay taxes over time versus paying them all up front. So if that is something that we can provide, would you be open to that, to this offer or going down this route? And they said yes. And I didn't know what I was, I didn't know the mechanics of it, but I knew that how to frame it. And then at that point in time, we had conversations. I encouraged them to have conversations with their attorney about specifically what they needed to talk about. We laid out I talked to my CPA, who provided some simple, steps inside of as far as the tax law that we were able to provide as documentation. And then that gave them the comfort to want to continue to move forward, and which lended more credibility to us and locked up the deal. But again, didn't need to know the mechanics, just need to know how to present it in a way that was simple enough for them to understand.
That's it. Dan, give us a summary here in leaving. Give us a summary of what you're looking for your note business to do over the next few years. What are you trying to accomplish?
So for me, I think what I stated here at the very beginning, this is more about a quality of life. I really wanted to create this business to sustain a quality of life. And as I've had some changes in my personal life, over the last few months or the last 6 months. My wife's wanting to come on board now, so we're looking at making a transition there. I think the note space really kind of fits to her psyche and her mentality and how she approaches business. And we just see the writing on the wall from a lifestyle standpoint. We've been going pretty hard for the last 2 years here on the fix and flip side, and for us, we really want to build a legacy. We want to build a lifestyle from a quality standpoint, and that's really where it's going. And we see, and I believe it, and again, everybody has a different perspective on this, but for me personally in my business, this is just where I feel that it's led me. When I stepped into 2019 into note school, it was because it hit all the core key points for me. It resonated with me emotionally. It resonates with me from a business standpoint, and that's what we're going to continue to pursue. We just haven't. The only reason why we didn't do it sooner is just because of what happened here in our market.
Totally got it.
Yeah, so that's where we're going with it. We're looking to really push in that direction, and I couldn't be more excited about it for the opportunities that lie ahead here in the next 12 to 24 months.
Well, I'm glad for you and your family. As you know, in all my heart, I believe that building legacy and building wealth, that this strategy, and I believe, as we discussed last week, I believe the next 5 years are going to lay the path for our business. This is an incredible inflation fighter, creative financing, and a lot of things to really understand about how that happens. But the answer is it happens. If you do it correctly, it's an incredible inflation fighter, and it does allow you to do what you have talked about is so powerful, which is you own your own little bank.
Yep, absolutely.
Dan Walters, thank you. Good to talk to you, my friend.
Always great to see you, Eddie. Thanks again for the time and the opportunity, and we're looking forward to engaging with you more here over time. Appreciate it, buddy.
All right. Thank you, buddy.